Hi there, we are live on the Frugal Crafters YouTube channel. I'm Lindsay the Frugal Crafter, and I am joined by Sarah today.
Hello!
I know you guys were missing Sarah, and she is back, so our normal, regular Friday live stream. And we are going to paint some delicious gummy bears here. Hopefully the camera doesn't keep adjusting. I probably am a little rusty and I forgot to check that box. So bear with me.
It's all white too. Like, there's nothing for
Yes,
it
that's
to
true.
focus
That's
on.
true. So I just wanted to let you know that I'm running a special in my Teachable School, any class for $42 with the coupon code HB42 for Happy Birthday 42. It's in the video description, so you can copy and paste it. Or on my blog, there's links to each class on sale, so you can get there easier that way. And also, if you're local, I'll be at the Orrington Public Library tomorrow from 9 to 4 for a craft fair. So if you're in the neighborhood, please stop by. We are going to start by sketching our gummy bears, and there's a photo on my blog if you want to look at that. It's probably a little easier. I'm going to use colored pencils, and I'm using the Color-Ace colored pencils by Prismacolor. And I'm just doing that so that I don't have pencil lines showing through, but I can definitely keep some nice crisp lines. So I'm going to start, I think I'll start with this red one in front, right there. And I apologize for the focusing. I'm just going to move that out of the way. So you don't have to watch that. And I'm going to start by kind of making a rectangle for the body. And I'm going to just do kind of like another cube for the head that's a little bit smaller. I'll draw this a little darker than I want you to, just so that you can see it. But I just want to make sure that you can see it, but I don't want you to have yours too dark. And now for the feet, I'm doing some rounded triangles, kind of, like that. And then for the paws, I'm doing another kind of triangular shape like that. And there's no real crisp, hard lines here because they're soft and gummy. Then we're going to do the head, just kind of round the bottom. We're going to get a, almost like a diamond in there for the snout. Couple little eyes. And just some rounded ears. And then you can round things out a little bit more if you want to. That's generally going to be the gist of it. So I think I'll switch to orange and get the orange one in there. Over here, again, I'm going to start with a cube. And if you can see part of the side, then you can kind of make a double line there. Or if you drew your cube too big and you couldn't erase it because you had a regular pencil, regular colored pencil, then you could double it up and no one will know that it was a little off. So we've got our two cubes. We're going to do, if you're seeing it from the side a little bit, you will see kind of like a bump for the arm and a bump for the leg. So it won't be really squared off. The supplies that I'm using you can find at our sponsor, jerrysartorama.com. And there's a coupon code for them in the video description for, I think it's 20 or 25% off their non-sale items. And we'll get this arm in there. And we'll up here get our ears on. The key is just to basically draw them fairly similar so that, because they are all gummy bears, you want them to be roughly similar. I probably have that orange one a little big, but I'm not going to worry about that too much. I have one that's going to kind of sit up in front of it, so I'm just going to draw one kind of leaning up on it. Not all gummy bears are perfectly the same. And I'm actually just going to go through and get just the basic cubes because I can always add more detail in with my paint. Now here we have one that's leaning on top of the red one.
Yeah, the camera does keep trying to focus. I don't know if that's something you can...
I could only by bailing out and starting a new live stream.
Right.
How many people are here?
We currently have 163.
Oh, it's Friday the 13th.
I know, right?
Well, let's get the sketch done, and then if I
Okay.
need to bail and do another one, start a new one, then I will, and the moderators can get links to everybody. Basically by going to my channel page and then seeing the new live stream. That would probably be the only way to do it.
Yeah, because anytime you move, it starts to...
Frustrating. Yeah, I'm just trying to think. I wonder if I could pop into the same stream. That would be really handy. I don't know if I can do that though. Where I've already started it. Okay, we'll finish a sketch here, and then if we need to restart, then I'll restart it. So bear with me, guys. Doing the best I can. Shoot, I haven't made that mistake in a long time. And let's get a little yellow cube over here. Maybe when I put a little color down, it'll stop. Is it really bugging people?
A few people.
Yeah.
Someone's saying you should be able to shut autofocus off without having to restart. But I don't know
I
how.
can't go into I go into Logitech settings to do that, and I can't. It will say the camera's already in use if I've got the stream started already. I can try it though. I'm willing to give it a try. Because I go from my computer. I'm not like on a phone or anything. Well, I'm gonna try that. Just bear with me. Controls. I might be able to. Webcam options. Oh, okay. Maybe this will work. I just turned it off, so... Oh, yes! Thank you, person in the chat!
That actually...
Val, thank you! Oh my gosh, I can't... Because it wouldn't show me the camera, but it let me uncheck the autofocus. Oh, hopefully that does keep working. Oh, wonderful. Thank you, Val. I appreciate it so much. And we're going to get one more...
So far, it's not autofocusing at all. The real test will be once you start sketching again.
Yeah. Oh, good. I knew she was moderator for a reason. I'm not seeing any autofocusing on my monitor, and my monitor
I'm not seeing anything right now either, so I think that fixed it.
Oh, thank goodness.
Yay for Val.
Yay for Val. She wins the day. Give her a gold star.
Give her 2 gold stars.
Yes, 2 gold stars, absolutely. Okay, so there we have our basic little sketch of our gummy bears. I guess I could have made them bigger and filled up more space, but I think that's all right. I'm just wondering if I should get a little bit more detail in these guys over here, just so when I start painting I don't get too far off the rails here. Of course, you could have made like a little cardboard template and you could have just traced it. That would have worked as well. Wouldn't have been as fun though. Okay, so if you do have any erasing to do, you can erase these pencils. And I really haven't used them all that much, but I bought them because they're erasable and I thought it would be handy. Yeah, they do erase. I'm not even rubbing too hard because I'm always a little nervous with good watercolor paper and erasers, but gosh, you know, they're erasing just fine. So kind of a fun different product to try. Okay, I'm going to use my big mimic brush just to brush off the crumbs. I'm not going to worry about too much detail here. The first thing I am going to do is go in and put a little bit of shadow. So if I look at my bears, now it's on a plate, so you're not going to see that much shadow. It's pretty close to each bear. You just see a little bit of shadow. It's not a lot. So I'm just going to start off with a little bit of shadow, and then I'll probably do more to it later. So this is just to kind of unify everything, because I'll also want to get some of the color in the shadow too, since they're translucent, but I don't want to do that at this point. I'll probably do that bear by bear as we go in there. So I'm wetting the area around the bears. I want to wet in between all of the bears and out a little bit further than where they are, so there's room for the shadow to flow, so we don't have a hard edge in in our shadow. It's Friday the 13th. Are you superstitious at all, Sarah?
Heck no.
Oh, good. I try not to be. But sometimes, you start thinking about it's like, oh, what's going to go wrong?
Anything bad that's happened to me has never been on Friday the 13th. So life experience has shown me that it means nothing.
Yeah. And I'm sure that is the case with most people but you I think you're more aware, and so you tend to notice it more if something didn't go your way on Friday
well,
the 13th.
if you want, you could think of that every day, because every day, not everything goes your way.
That's true. Oh my gosh, it looks like the pencils are a little bit water soluble too. Like, I'm noticing some color move a little bit. Some of that purple moved a little bit, it looks like. Nothing, you wouldn't call it a watercolor pencil because they're not moving that much, but it does move a little bit. All right, so for my shadows, I just have primary colors here. I think I will bring in some burnt sienna just so I have a little easier time, or burnt umber. Let's see, I'm going to go burnt umber. It's a PBR7, so you can use a PBR7 burnt sienna as well. It's a pretty neutral brown, so I figured that would be a good one. And I am using the Turner watercolors. Ooh, and I have phthalo blue. I have PG7 phthalo green. I have Hansa yellow light, permanent scarlet, and rose red. Those are all by Turner. I'm going to add a little bit of permanent scarlet into that because it is so green. So when you're trying to mix a brown, because I'm not using ultramarine, I'm using phthalo. If you're getting a bias to a color, in this case it's green, a greenish blue, add a red to an orangey red to kind of counteract it. And then just keep mixing until you get a nice gray that you're happy with. Now I don't need this to be too dark. I just want it to kind of give me a little bit of grounding for these bright candies. Now the colors here, the phthalo is a staining color, but the other two colors that I used aren't, so hopefully it won't be too hard to blend if I need to. Do you have any questions so far?
No, we're good so far.
All right. Oh yeah, and if you do have a question, just type the word question in all caps and keep it related to the project or watercolor. So it will be really useful for the replay viewers. And since this is kind of like lit from above, you are going to get a little shadow all around. Depending on how, if you have a dish of candy or gummy bears you're working from at home, depending on how your lighting is, your shadows probably are not going to agree with mine. They're going to be different. And I suggest going by what you see, so that way when you're looking and trying to follow along, you have a more accurate look and more accurate perspective and view.
Benny Chavez, have you ever used neutral tint, and do you think it's useful?
I just got a tube of it because it came in a set of core watercolors that I bought. I haven't really used it. I think it could be useful for doing like value studies and just kind of getting your darks and lights and kind of figuring that out, or maybe doing grisaille. So like you do a painting in just gray and then you glaze over colors afterwards. Generally that's done in oil paints, because oil paints you can thin them down to make them more translucent, or you can use them more opaquely. So, you can cover up what you need to, but you can just have veils of color showing through as well. So, I tend not to use pre-made grays and just kind of mix them with whatever I'm using to keep harmony. But I know a lot of artists do use it. So I have a tube of it now, so I'll probably try to use it in something to see what I think. It's not a color I would have bought if it didn't come in a set, but I'm curious to see if I can find use for it. But that's generally what it's used for. And I'm just pulling a little bit of the shadow into the candies a little bit as well, so they don't appear to be cutouts.
Mava Ben Mohab, have you wet the back of your paper?
No, I'm working on a block, so it's sealed. Now, something I think I'm also going to do right now is add some colors so some can seep out into the wet background. So I'm just going to grab a little bit of Pyrrole Scarlet and a little bit of yellow to make my orange color. and just kind of, actually, I think I'll just base in each of these so they can bleed out a little bit. But I'm going a lighter shade than I typically will, and I'll be building up for the color intensity. And I've got a peach one over here, so I'll just take that same color over here to this peach one. And grab some yellow for that yellow one. I feel if you get this messy stuff done right off the bat, then you're not afraid, for, like in the future, to go in and, you know, build. It's so hard to put a background in after you've spent a lot of time on your foreground. So if I'm going to mess it up, I'd rather mess it up fast and then start over than, you know, work so hard on something and then end up messing it up on the last stages, or having that awkward look or that cutout look to something. Let's see, the Viridian, or I'm sorry, the Phthalo green on its own looks pretty good for this little light minty gummy bear here. And I'm going pretty quick because I want to work while my paper is still wet. And I'm going to add a little bit of phthalo to that for this beautiful teal gummy bear. They were so pretty in the bin we went to Perry's Nut House, and they had big bins of a candy, and those gummy bears were so pretty, and Lila wanted some, so I said, okay, let me paint them though, or let me paint some. And she said, Mom, they're not going to last. You better take what you want.
Alexander Manga, how are you feeling about Dan Smith's palettes? Which one are you getting?
Dan Smith's Daniel. They must be Daniel Smith palette. They're coming out with pans. I haven't planned on getting any per se. If you watched my watercolor palette tour, you know that I am pretty set on watercolors. And I don't know what versions there are. I just saw like an advertisement on Instagram for them, so I really don't know much about them, except they are coming out with some pan colors, which is nice because they've never. If you wanted to buy pans of Daniel Smith color in the past, you'd have to buy it from like Etsy sellers that sold them. So I don't have any plans to get any, but they do look nice. I'm hoping my fast drawing does not give me problems down the road. Sometimes when you don't have a very precise drawing to begin with, you can pay for that down the road, but I think that they're loose and soft enough that I'll be fine. I'm going to add a little bit of that scarlet into that rose red because it's a little too pink. I think it's fun to paint something that's really common that you see but you don't really look at. Blot that a little bit. That's a little darker than I wanted it. And then we're going to make our purple with our rose red and our phthalo blue. And I'll be drying this paper in a second, so if anybody has any questions, it'd be a great time to answer them.
Sloan Peterson, what colors from M. Graham would you recommend? She's looking to buy some professional watercolors.
I would recommend the colors that you like to use. M. Graham doesn't have any, there's no colors that I would say, oh my gosh, absolutely get this color, stay away from that color. I'm not a big fan of their cobalt blue. I do like their naphthol red, which is a color you usually don't see in watercolors. But it's a nice neutral red. I mean, they're all nice. They're all nice. I would say get the colors that you know that you're going to use. Okay, I'm going to dry this so that we can work on our next layers. I'm so glad that Val told me about that trick on turning off the autofocus, because that's happened to me before and I just like struggled. It was...
And now you know how to fix it without having to go through the whole thing.
Those colored pencils are neat. This is what they look like if you're looking for them. They come in a box. They come in a set of 12 or 24, and they're not very expensive. I think they're around $10 to $20 in that ballpark, depending on what size of pack that you want. And I'm not sure if you can get them open stock or not, but I don't think they're the type of product that you would wear down pretty quickly. I think generally people use them to do sketches before they do watercolor or marker work, because then they don't have the dark lines and they can erase them. So that's why I got them. And I haven't had any issue with breakage. I think I might have had one color that I had to keep sharpening because it must have been dropped in the factory or something, but all in all, they sharpen pretty well. They're not super soft like a regular Prismacolor, but they're not as hard as a very thin either.
Kendall McCauley, are you filling the whole, when painting the ones underneath others, are you filling the whole shape because the bears are translucent?
Yes, I am.
And Tanya Payan, what prep does Lindsay do before starting a painting?
It really depends. If I'm just like working in my sketchbook, no prep. I just jump in and start working. If it's a live stream, I would do either find a reference photo or find an object that I want to paint and go from there, so that I don't waste any more time than necessary to get going. So it just depends. It depends on like how nice of paper I'm using. If I'm using really nice paper, then it's going to be a little more precious, and I'm going to want to make sure I'm not wasting it. So I will, think about my subject a little bit more, gather probably several reference photos, and do that. So what I'm going to do here is, so it basically depends on the mood that I'm in. So I'm going to be putting a little sliver of shadow and then just blending the edge, just so I can break them apart from the background a little bit more. Now this one, I only really want it kind of touching towards the bottom where I have, because that one's leaned up on the other one. So I really shouldn't have put that in there at all. I'm just going to scrub that out because that would be up in the air a little bit more. So on contact points, and I'm just doing that, and maybe if I hold it just right, you can kind of see, I'm seeing more shadow on the bottom of the elements there, so that's where I'm putting those shadows. I'm not going to put them up above. Like there is kind of like, especially if this was on paper and not on a shiny plate, you would see just kind of like an ambient shadow everywhere, but with this, I just want to get the contact shadows, which will be right underneath. And that's that same mix of gray that I was doing before. And I do have a lot of light sources in here, so if you don't see that you have as many, or you're not seeing it in yours, if you have gummy bears set up at home, then, obviously do what you see.
Sean Morgan, what inspired you to paint gummy bears?
Oh, just seeing them in the shop on my birthday, which was Tuesday. I took the day off and we went to Belfast, which is this little coastal town in Maine, and we went to this tourist trap that we go every year. And I mean, I went when I was a kid. It's this place
Perry's
called
Nut House?
Perry's Nut House. Yes. And it's just this little like kind of candy store, and it's got like novelty stuff like gag gifts,
plastic vomit,
that sort of stuff. It's just this and fudge and like made products and stuff like that. It's just a fun little thing to do. And they had these bins of candies, and they had like the gummy lobsters and all sorts of
they have like the whales and sharks, and you can get the gummies in any shape.
Yeah, and the bears were so jewel toned and pretty, and I've actually been wanting to get some gems, and there actually is a gem shop right next door, but to buy something just to paint it once is, I don't know, just seemed a little wasteful, because I don't like to own so many things, because then you have to deal with them and care for them and find a place for them, but these were kind of giving me that like jewel tone fix without anything left over, because I'm sure one of the kids is going to claim these as soon as I'm done.
Mm-hmm.
If not, they might even be fighting over them. I kept them away from the kids and my husband last night. I put a sign on it saying, "This is a still life, do not eat."
Yeah, that was pretty entertaining.
I was not going to be happy if there were only 2 gummies left when I got up this morning. Although by the end of the time painting this, I might have a different tune. I don't really want the shadow up there, but I was seeing a little bit of a darker shadow up there. And I feel like I could use, oops, I just used the wrong brush. So when you take one brush to blend and use one brush to paint, that's called the British two-brush method. And it's pretty handy, actually. So you have a damp, clean brush for blending. That's a little too wet, actually. And you've got a brush with paint for painting. All right. And that just gives us a little bit more presence for our bears. All right, now I think this one's probably pretty dry. I'm going to start here because that's where I started putting my shadows on. And I'm using my number 8 round because it has a good point. But if your number 8 brush does not have a good point, go with a 6 or a 4 or whatever you feel comfortable with. I am going to start off with Permanent Scarlet. And after getting like a basic wash of the lighter colors, I actually like to go in with the darker colors. So I'm going to take the Scarlet. I'm going to pretty much use that on its own because I don't want to lighten it with too much yellow. And I'm going to go in and paint. Oh, that looks really red. I guess I will add a little bit of yellow to that. Sometimes you can't really tell what a color looks like till you get it on your paper where it needs to go, and then you can see if it's really... It's a little bit better. And it's okay for these to be pretty harsh because as we glaze over with other things, they will soften. And I'll make sure I update the materials list for the colors that I used. I feel like I've got a hair on my brush sticking out. There we go. This edge where you can kind of see the side of the gummy bear, that ends up being a little bit darker. Now, I have this translucent one over it, so I'm going to be careful where I put color. I almost want to have that, like, paint around that bear in front because I do have that wash underneath showing that orangey color. So I kind of want to paint around that so that we can see that kind of light, creamy yellow color is on top. And gummy bears are kind of like frosted glass. You do get a little bit of a refraction where you have different layers of gumminess. And I'm just looking back and forth at my subject as I'm going to make sure I'm not leaving anything out. I feel like I want a little bit more of the redder color in there. All right, now I'm going to move to this lighter yellow, which is very neutral, like kind of like a neutral, it's almost like a champagne color, really. So I'm taking my yellow, I'm going to mix it in with a little bit of the orange. I'm going to grab a little bit of that gray that we mixed to tone down the yellowness of it. I'm going to add a little bit of that purple in there. Oh, there we go. With the purple that I had on my palette, with what I had on my brush, that's about right. I'm going to mix up a little bit more of that purple just to make sure I have enough. There, that's just about right. And I'm going to go through and I am going to add some shadows on this. My darker shadows, which are very light because this is really light.
That's big animals down here.
I know. Trump, Trump, Trump. Well, we won't be bothered by the sound of the furnace, since we have a new furnace now. And
oh, you got a new furnace.
yes, finally. After no hot water for a couple of weeks. Luckily, we were away for one of those weeks, but still. Man,
oh boy.
Man.
I didn't know I knew you were getting your septic.
Yeah, that hasn't happened yet, but that is also on the very
list.
expensive summer project docket.
Yeah.
But hopefully that'll last us another 40 years like the first furnace.
Right, yeah. It's, you know, very expensive up front, but...
Yeah.
And who knows, you might even end up saving, like, oil and stuff because you might have more efficient
Oh,
hot water.
yeah, it'll be more efficient. Definitely. It should pay for itself in a couple of years. The extra cost of the going with the more energy efficient model. But my Maxine's mop here is there. Okay, back to my brush. Add a little bit more of that teal in there, and I think that's all I'm going to do to that one for now. Now we're going to go over to this green, and that we're going to use the phthalo green, and we're going to use some yellow.
There's no internet being used.
Okay.
Jackson's making breakfast.
It must just be a little... I'm going to click over on to see if this is my stream bad or something. No, it says I have a good stream, so hopefully it's just... Oh, now it says it's bad. Oh, could I get you to go jiggle the wires on top of the TV? There's little antennas on the right.
I'm not buffering anymore.
Oh, you're not? Okay, so maybe it's just delayed. Let's hope. I've already jiggled the wires once today. It's Friday the 13th, though. That must be the reason.
Lindsay, we've had buffering when it's not Friday the 13th.
That's true.
Yeah, we're back. We're back.
Good.
Good picture, clear. People are saying you're back, so it's good.
Oh, good. Anybody that's stuck around this long must be diehard. They put up with the autofocus at the beginning, and...
Yeah, we've had 2 weeks off. It happens.
Yeah, boy, you get rusty quick. I get rusty quick. Not you. You're doing fine, but man, I get rusty quick. And now this bear that's in behind is darker, so I'm just going to add a little bit more of the phthalo green.
Sean Morgan, do the core watercolors glaze well?
Yeah, they do. I think so. They're very transparent, so the more transparent your paint is, the better it's going to glaze. And I also find that Aquazol binder that they use is really good. It's really adhesive, so it seems like they don't like lift up as easily, so it gives you a little bit of a benefit in glazing. I'll be doing a review on them. I just charted out all my colors because I've had like several little sets, and that way I can show you a little bit more comprehensive look at the line, and that's on my to-do list. Okay, that one really don't see too much detail on, so we're just kind of getting those luminescent colors. So over here we have a yellow one, so I'm just going to use the Hancy Yellow Light pretty much on its own. I might need to pick up a little bit of gray or something with it, but I'm going to see on its own first, especially on the feet, because the feet are kind of the outside edge of the whole composition, and it's just grabbing a little bit more light. So I want that color to be pure. And now grab a little bit of that gray that I mixed, and I'm going to add that into the edges, kind of where it's overlapping the peach one. It's kind of funny how it's pretty abstract, and just a little dab can kind of suggest that it's a gummy bear. And the peach one, we could pretty much use that orange color, but add some more yellow to it. Or actually, we could use the rose and yellow. That would give us more of a peach rather than orange. So if we do the rose and the yellow, we get much more of a peach tone. And with this one, you've got a lot more concentrated color around the edges. And then you're going to see a little bit of it into that yellow one as it's overlapped. The yellow one is overlapped on the peach, I mean. But you don't see as much detail in that because of how light it is. I'm going to add a little bit of rose in on its own there because it does have definite pink undertones. Okay, and I feel like I should have a little bit of that on this green one because it almost seems like that one's tipped up on the peach one as well, just because of the way that I drew them a little too close together. Now for the purple one, again, we're going to use our rose red and our phthalo blue. I love the tins that the core watercolors come in because they have all these nice like divots in the lid for mixing. This mixes, oh no, it's still on camera. I thought I might have gone off camera a little bit with that, but. Okay, and I think I'll throw a little bit of that gray in there because the shadows on the purple, it's not really bright. Oh, you know what? And the purple is above that green. It's leaned up on the green, so I'm going to scrub out some of that green. I want some of it to show through, but that was way too much. There we go. So we'll just have a little hint of that green showing through. Get the feet in there. The edges of the gummy bear is going to have a little more shadow. I'm just hinting at the shape, really. How many people do we have hanging out today?
We have 200.
Nice. And last we have the blue one. We'll start with a phthalo blue, and I think it does need a little bit of green to it because it's not like, it's almost like a deep teal here. And you can see the edges pretty clearly. It's butted up against the orange one, but it's not, they're not overlapping. The little paws in there. Boy, this is really repetitive. I should have thought about how repetitive this is going to be.
No, it's good though, because it's good learning how to do transparent stuff.
That's true. Okay. Now again, we can go back to the first gummy bear because that's dry by now. So now I want to get a little bit of a more robust, bright color for some of the mid-tones. So I'm going to start with yellow. And just add a little bit of the Pyrrole Scarlet into it because I want a really, really bright color, like more yellow than orange. And I'm going to be adding that to some of the areas that would have a little bit more highlight, like it would have trapped the light a little bit. And I'm also going to be using just the yellow on its own on the other one because the highlights in that bear are almost like a pure yellow. Just kind of dabbing it in. I'm not putting it everywhere, but I just want that kind of sparkle of bright. So just that kind of pure Hancy yellow light there. Now for the red, it almost looks like, I don't think we went and did anything to the red in the last one. Let's do that. Let's use the rose red, because the shadows are a little cooler, so I'll just take that rose on its own. Yeah, I never did anything with that. I think because it was so much darker than the other ones. So we'll have to make sure we skip around back to that. And since I can see enough through that teal bear, I'm not going to go over that. There's definitely enough under there. So again, this is the darker shadow on this bear. I forgot on the first pass through. There we go. That'll have to dry before we go in and do anything else to it. Actually, probably could use a little bit of purple in that dark. Go ahead and add that in now while everything's still wet. Just just blotting my brush because that's a little strong. Sounds like an ice cream truck. Do you hear that?
No. I hear the water or something being... I don't hear ice cream truck, though.
I'm hearing this like kind of tinkly sound. Maybe it's something the kids are listening to upstairs. Okay, for this one, this is going to be another yellow, very yellow highlight. Just cutting it down with a little bit of the green there. Actually, I think I can use the yellow pretty much on its own there, too. Sounds like a Jack-in-the-Box or something. A Jack-in-the-Box on Friday the 13th. I just took a scary book out of the library yesterday, too. Maybe I shouldn't read that today.
Lindsay, stop being so superstitious. It's just another day.
I know, I'm not really a superstitious person, but I do tend to...
Oh my gosh, I'm making a mess over here.
What'd you do?
Oh, I knocked one thing over with my elbow and two other things fell over.
Yeah, this place is kind of a Jenga game right now. Now the peach is kind of odd. I almost feel like the shadows I'm seeing in that one are kind of gray. I don't know if you're picking that up on camera. They're almost like a purple or a gray, which is kind of odd, but that's what I see, so that's what I'm going to put down. I think I'm going to go in with this, some of that leftover purple. I don't have much left, so I think I'll have enough on there. And just get, I feel like I have enough highlight, so I just feel like I need a little more shadow on that one. Not a lot, just something to, I think it's probably just the shadows I'm seeing through the translucence. And then for our purple, we're just going to mix up a nice vibrant purple, which I already have some there. I think I'll go a little bit heavier on the rose. And just kind of splash a little bit of that in. And then the highlights on that blue one are almost kind of green, so I'm just going to go in with this light yellow green here. Throw some of that light in there. And then our little teal one in the middle has definite more yellow highlights. So we'll just grab the yellow. My brush feels real wet, so I'm just going to blot it.
Sean Morgan, where do you buy your empty full pans and half pans?
I've bought them from Jackson Art in the past through Amazon, and the last batch I got at Amazon because they were just the lowest price. For whatever reason, I find that American art suppliers don't stock empty half pans. I think probably because tubes sell better, and people generally will buy a palette and put them in. And it's really hard to find even full pans in store. You can order them online, but for the empty pans, my best luck has been Amazon or Jackson's. I'd say Jackson's if you live in the UK. Okay, now I want to add a little bit of color to the table, and I'm going to put that below each of the gummy bears where that darker shadow is, and I'm just going to go around and pick up color on my palette that is from the bears, and just add a little kind of a blush of that color next to each bear, so that way I end up with a little bit of light that's passed through the bear that's cast a little shadow on the table. Just make sure it's really pale. You might have to like blot your brush off. Like that's a little bright. Rinse, blot, and spread it out a little bit. And you might even go in and add some more color if you feel like you didn't get enough for the first pass. Your darker colors obviously are gonna give you a little bit more color on as a reflection. But you can exaggerate it a little bit too, because it is a fun little effect. Wetting the area, then dripping in a little bit of that color usually does pretty well. Or you can put the color down and spread it out. But you're more likely to get a hard edge if you do that. We are deep in the hot mess stage, so don't despair if you're concerned. It will come out fine. It always does, even on Friday the 13th.
You know, if you keep bringing it up, you're going to have something bad. You're asking for something bad to happen to you.
Self-fulfilling prophecy.
That's right. You have to stay positive.
I am positive that things will be fine and dandy.
That's right.
I've not done a craft show in so long that I've almost like forgotten all the steps. Like, what do I need to pack?
Whoa, I forgot. Wow, there's more than I remember.
Yeah. Oh,
but you have two, three lovely helpers.
Yes, 4 if you count Jason. So he'll be doing some heavy lifting.
Well,
I think
he's working hard out in the field right now.
Yes, he is. But I can't load up until he gets home with his truck anyway, because I've got displays and whatnot. Okay, so now I think I'm going to dry this, and I think I'm going to go in with my pencils again, my Color Erase pencils, and kind of sharpen up some edges. Do we have any other questions in the chat?
We're caught up for the moment. We have a lot of chat going on, but we're all caught up with the questions.
Oh yeah, what's everyone talking about today? I always feel like I miss out.
Well, just paints and type paints and some glazing and stuff. Actually, people talking about pans and some Friday the 13th talk. And yeah.
Cool.
We've got kind of a wide assortment of chat going on.
Nice. All right, so you want to make sure your paper's dry if you're going to go in with colored pencil, or at least the portion that you're going to work on is dry. These aren't going to show up as much as like a Prismacolor. So I know that I'm still going to keep the essence of the watercolor by going in with these. You can go in with any color pencils you want. Just keep in mind that these are just kind of, they're not very potent. They're definitely a less pigmented product. I think that's probably why they erase better. They are not an expensive product. They're not, I mean, artists use them, but you know, they're not what you think of when you think of like your artist quality pencil. So I'm just kind of, I might go in with some nicer pencils, but I just want to get in with a little bit of shading. It can be hard to tell with these indigo. That's what I wanted. Some of the colors look different. Like this looks almost black, and I didn't want black, so I'm using a little indigo here. The thing I like about this is that I'm a very sketchy drawer. I like to be very free-flowing when I draw, and I feel that I can with this because I can always erase it. I don't know how well. It's not going to erase if you're on damp paper, but you should be able to even get some lines off going over your watercolor. There. Now I feel like that one, just those few lines, even though they're not that dark, I feel like it just gives a little bit more structure. And it's funny, these pencils do not like to stick on top of the watercolor paint as much as they did on the regular paper. So you really can't overdo it with these, which is nice. You don't have to worry about, oh, I just ruined everything I did. It's kind of impossible to do too much to it with those pencils. They're definitely not as strong as your watercolors. This one hardly wants to give out any pigment at all, it seems. One thing I did find, like some of these were not very well centered, and when I sharpened them, there's still wood on one side of the lead, so that was kind of frustrating. But other than that, I mean, I think they're kind of a fun product because they're nice to, you know, just be able to freely sketch with color and erase it if you don't like it. Okay. Just anything you feel like you need a little bit more definition on, that'd be a great thing to hit with a pencil, because they're going to meld in with your paints pretty well. especially when you have those overlapping bears. I think you can do a lot with a pencil to help them bust free. I'm going to use like a lemon yellow on this really champagne-y colored bear because I think it will help it break out a little bit more. And maybe even a little bit of lavender. Just a super, super light touch with this though, because it is going to really show up on yellow just because it is yellow and purple are opposites. So if you mix those colors, you make mud, but if you overlap them or you put a color adjacent, it makes the other color a little bit more vibrant. If you can see like details, you can also put them in like the pads on their paw, eyeballs, that sort of thing. Like this one, I got a nice at the paw there, and you have a lot of lightness there. I can go in and put those that little paw pad detail. It doesn't have to be on every bear or every foot, but it just gives you, it kind of helps sell the fact that these are gummy bears when you look at the picture as a whole. I think I'll use a purple on that one because the red wants to gobble up pretty much everything. Because these are a very benign coloring tool, they're going to help you keep that softness of the squishiness of the bears. I don't really have a minty color, but I think this light green will suffice. Just want to get the edges a little bit stronger. This blue might be better. So I know this blue is a very weak color, so I can smell somebody cooking upstairs.
Yeah, Jackson had the eggs and bacon out.
Ah. Yeah, they were all up fairly early today. I was surprised they were all up by 9 a.m.
Wow, it is early for them.
It is for kids.
Especially Jackson. He'll sleep till noon if you let him.
He slept so late yesterday, and I didn't give him a hard time about it because the furnace people were here installing, so I figured fewer people running around trying to use water and stuff would be a little bit better. But man, he didn't come out of his cave till like 4 in the afternoon.
You gotta poke him just to make sure he's still breathing.
Yeah, I did check on him, make sure he was alive. Make sure he wasn't sick or something.
Oh, you probably know it if he was sick. He'd probably let you know.
Probably. He was pretty stoic, though. Get a grunt, you know?
Right.
How's your day? Huh?
Yeah.
Talk for fun. Okay. See you later. Yeah. Enunciate, child. Enunciate. You have 2 broadcasters for parents.
That's true.
Enunciate. Okay, so now I'm kind of thinking about highlights and mulling over my options. I could use a colored pencil, which would give me that frosty, soft look. I could use a gel pen, which would give, or a white paint pen, which would give me a little bit more of a sharper look. And I think what I'm going to do is I like to go for contrast, so I'm going to use the paint pen first. A gel pen is absolutely fine. And I'm going to get those really bright sparkles and then see what I need from there, because I like to go extremes. I like to go the shadows and the highlights, because once I get those in, it's really easy to determine what I need. So I am going to work my way through and get my brightest highlights. And just, if you have a reference at home, keep, like, your eyeballs should be looking at your reference as much as you're painting. So back and forth, like you're watching a tennis match. from my website. Download it and put it in a little window on your computer screen so you can look between the reference photo and the tutorial, or print it out and look at it while you're working on this. I know it's hard to paint along, especially when you want to chit chat with your friends. So if you're going to do this later or you're watching the replay, I would suggest printing it out or opening it on your computer screen so you can keep referring to that, because when I took the picture it was pretty much straight down, so you should have the same point of view. And I did have my upstairs filming setup lighting it, I think, or I might have taken it outside, so it would have been an overall above lighting scenario similar to this. It's kind of weird, I've been a vegetarian for over 20 years, but still when I smell certain foods, it's kind of like, it kind of makes me hungry because it's like nostalgic, like bacon or turkey, things like that. So I'm like, I'm kind of hungry. I don't want to eat bacon, but just that smells like a diner, kind of.
I do not eat bacon. I love bacon.
You love bacon?
I love bacon.
I think we got plenty. We got some at Sam's Club before we went camping, and nobody cooked it.
No. Yeah, you do have plenty then.
Yeah. I don't. The camp has a gas stove, and I'm so nervous about cooking on a gas stove. And we rent it. We don't own it, so I don't want to make a mess and then have to clean it up.
Cooking on a gas stove is so much easier than cooking on electric. It makes cooking so much easier.
Does it? It just seems like the open flame. That's what really. I'm always afraid that I'm not going to turn it off.
It's not open because you have your things around.
There's a flame though coming off of the thing.
Right, but it's controlled by a regulator and knobs. It's not like you're just setting fire to the top of a stove and letting it go.
It seems like that though.
It's not though, Lindsay. It's not. I swear. It's all regulated. It's all, and if it does catch, the whole thing does catch on fire, then yes, there's a problem. But you're more likely to be hit by a car.
I don't like it.
Well, you should, because you hate cooking and you like cooking on a gas stove way better than an electric, because the cooking's a lot easier and a lot better.
Scared of the fire. When we bought her, because when we moved in here, they had this everything was Harvest Gold fridge, Harvest Gold stove.
Oh, we had the avocado.
Oh, nice.
Green in our house when I was a kid.
Oh, well, and this, the oven didn't work when we moved in, so one of the first things we replaced was an oven, and I'm like, I do not want to deal with burners. We got a flat top. That thing is, I'm so glad we went with that, because you just wipe it down. After everything cools off, you just wipe it down.
See, and I'm the complete opposite, because we had a flat top in one of our apartments, and I hated it. I hated cooking on it, I hated cleaning it, I hated everything about it. I couldn't wait to not have a flat top stove.
Why did you hate it, though? Because you can just wipe it off. It's all smooth.
Yeah, but you have to use a special cleaner.
I don't. I use water and dish soap.
You're supposed to use a special cleaner to keep it in good shape, and they stay way hotter longer than they should, but they don't stay lit, so they're still hot. So you can't set any, you can't use it as storage or just put anything on there. You can't tell me
You're supposed to store things on your stove.
Sure you are. You keep a pan on there, like your cast iron that you use all the time.
I don't like those. Those are gross. They never get cleaned properly.
Oh boy.
They're nasty because you can't clean them right, and they've got meat juice all over them. Okay,
yes, you can clean them right, but you have to use the right cleaners.
I think cast iron's been around for a long time. I think that probably they say not to clean it. You're supposed to rub it with oil and call it a day, and I think that's nasty.
Okay, well that's not correct. I mean, partially correct, I should say. But it's fine. We can agree to disagree.
Yeah. For someone who's not a big neat freak, I do like clean pans. Stovetop, it's not like sparkling, but I feel like it's clean. I wipe it down with a dishcloth after I wash the dishes.
Yes, but how dirty is the dishcloth?
Pretty clean. I've only used it to wash dishes.
We have very different viewpoints on that stuff, and that's fine. Thankfully, we don't live together, and we don't. So it's a moot point. All right. DVGV, what is the white marker Lindsay is using?
It is a Posca extra fine paint pen, and you can get them in multicolored sets, which is neat. It's nice to have those different colors for different things, but you'll probably use the white more often. You can refill it. I have a video on my channel, and I did realize that you can, a few viewers told me, because I was pulling out the nib and refilling it, but some viewers said you can actually separate the top and the bottom. In order to do that, I have to put a rubber band around the top, and then you can twist it the opposite way so it's righty-loosey. And you can use a pipette to fill it with a mixture of water and acrylic paint. So it's nice because you can keep reusing it and refilling your colors as you need to. But if you know you only need white, you can get just a white marker. Or you can get, like, I know Amazon has a 3-pack that's like 3 of these extra fine whites and 3 Uniball Signo gel pens. Jerry's Autorama, I could not find the fine tip Posca pens there. They do have gel pens, but you have to buy boxes of 12. So I didn't link them down because I think that it's a mistake to buy that many gel pens at once, because they, if you have more than one open at a time, you have to constantly be using them, or you're going to, they're going to dry up on you. So that's why I didn't link to them. I didn't want somebody to get a box of 20 and then have a bunch going at once and then be frustrated when they clog up on them. Now I'm going in with some just pure color here. Not mixed. I want the colors nice and bright, and I'm just adding splashes of this bright color. You can go over some of the highlights. Don't go over all of them. And we're going to do that for every color that we have used. Try not to mix unless you really have to, because the color's too far off. And make sure you get nice pure color and you don't get it mixed up with something else. We want our colors to be saturated. We do want some contrast. And glaze right over some of those highlights, and that will just give you that more frosty look. The champagne one's a little more tricky. I am just going to use yellow for that. But it's pretty watery, so it shouldn't mess it up. The red, I'm using the rose red over the red gummy bear. And I'm not doing the entire thing, just kind of slapping some paint down. The mint one, you will have to use your mix because the other colors are really, the yellow's too yellow and the green's just too vibrant. So it's a mixture of the phthalo green and the yellow. And while I'm at it, I'm going to get a little bit darker of a color and add it to the
So now we're discussing cast iron and different types of stone.
It's so fun to look back at the replay.
Yep.
It's like, what did I miss? Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
I think I will go with mostly yellow on this. And I think next thing I'm going to do after this will be to grab a white Prismacolor pencil or Color Soft, whatever you have that is a nice white, and get some frosty highlights. And I really think that's going to be it, because you don't have super dark shadows. By the way, I did move to like a number 2 round for this, just so I didn't go overboard and get too much paint anywhere. We put quite a few layers on this. So on that one, I'm actually going to use the rose, but really, really diluted on our peach one here. So you really have to, you'll learn the more you paint to see those undertones. And I do have to use a mix, use a purple mix for this one. If you used a pure purple, like a one pigment purple, like a dioxazine violet, you totally could use that for your color. That would be nice. That's not a really bright, the purple gummy bear is not really bright anyway, so That's why I didn't go for a single pigment purple. I decided to mix it instead.
Joe Maskey just wanted to share that he's glad to be back.
Oh, good. I'm glad to see so many familiar faces and hear so many familiar names. Not that I can see anything right now, but I can hear the names. Now, just do any little adjustments you think you might need. Like, I'm just taking some of that gray that we mixed earlier, adding it to some of the blue there, getting the edge of this blue one, because I just felt like I didn't have the dimension on that one that I needed. Actually use some of that over here too to darken up the edges. And you will notice that sometimes the colors can affect one another. If they're close to each other, they'll reflect a little bit and refract the colors. Like I could even get a little bit of that blue color over here. If I wanted to. Seemed a little bit too much. Okay, so now I'm going to grab a white, or you could use a white watercolor crayon. That might be fun. Maybe we'll use a white watercolor crayon instead of a pencil. And that way we can actually soften it up more if we need to. So I am just going to look for highlights that are not super bright and put on some of the watercolor crayon, and I can dilute it later if I want to. This is a Caran d'Ache watercolor crayon. These can be purchased individually or in sets. Just keep in mind, if you go over this with water or with another color, it's going to mix in and blend. So if you don't want that to happen, use a colored pencil instead.
Pokey and Lillian S. wish you a happy birthday.
Thank you so much.
Lovely being 27, isn't it?
Oh, it's fabulous. You're getting carded for a senior citizen discount before long.
You got some years to go. Because you're not that much older than me, so.
That's true. I know, I don't feel 42. I feel much younger, usually.
I never feel my age. I forget how old I am sometimes.
Do you feel younger or older?
Oh, younger.
Yeah.
I'm 12 on the inside.
Oh yeah, you guys, like you and John, you definitely feel like a young, hip couple.
Well, I don't know about hip, but young.
Let's see, this yellow one, is that dry yet? That definitely needs a little bit of frosting. Your white watercolor crayon is very much like a gouache. So that's something, if you've been wanting to dabble in gouache, but you're not sure if you like it, but you really know you would like watercolor crayons, or you have watercolor crayons, then by all means use the watercolor crayons. You can scribble it onto a palette, or you can use your brush to pick up pigment from the tip, and get pretty much the same experience. Hey, this isn't looking too bad. I have to look up at my monitor to kind of see how it really looks sometimes. Now, when you want to dilute the watercolor crayons, I will recommend that you use a stiffer brush, like a golden Taklon or a white Taklon, something that's more intended for acrylics, because the softer watercolor brushes don't like to push around heavy paint, and you basically have almost like a dried gouache down when you use the watercolor crayon. So it's just kind of more difficult. And I'm just going in anywhere I felt like I just wanted to soften some of those lines, those marks.
Nicole Rooney, have you ever made your own watercolors? And if so, what ingredients have you used? You know, I really haven't, because I've been so pleased with what's commercially available. But if I was going to, I would buy some pure pigment from, like, I think you can buy the loose pigments from Kramer Pigments, or I would just find, I would make sure I got non-toxic ones, because I don't want to invest in a bunch of ventilators or
equipment to keep me from breathing in the nasty stuff. And then I would add Gummy Arabic to it and grind it up. It looks like a lot of work because I see some of the handmade watercolor people on Instagram showing like the grinding of the pigments. I think Eve Bolt does, and Eve might be in the chat today. She's a regular.
She is. She just got here a few minutes ago.
Yeah, I think she has some live streams on her channel where she's been making paint. I might be wrong, but I'm pretty sure I've seen them. But she makes handmade paint, and she would be a good resource for that. But I never have, because I've been really pleased with what's available commercially, and I would kind of hate to spend a lot of time making some and then be disappointed with it. I have done handmade metallic watercolors using Pearl X or Dollar Store eye makeup, and that's worked out just fine and dandy. But it's not something I typically paint a painting with. It's more something I would use in like a craft or to color like a stamped image or on black cardstock or something. So definitely check out Eve Bolt on that. And you can pick up color and you can mix it in with the watercolor crayon that you just put in there, and it will just kind of give you a pastel, more subdued veil, which is kind of those soft, hazy layers you want with the, with gummy bears, because they are very kind of hazy and translucent.
Lillian S., do you prefer the Turner watercolors or Da Vinci?
They are very similar, honestly. I actually have both in this palette. I can show you. Not that really, like, I was picking up Da Vinci colors thinking I'd Turner. Like, this is like this is permanent alizarin crimson. Let's see, this is the rose red deep versus rose red in Turner. Not that seeing in the pan necessarily tells you, but they're very similar. I feel like the Da Vincis are a little bit stronger than the Turners. And that might be just because I don't have that many Da Vincis. I have probably 9 colors, and they're all very potent colors. So, I mean, when I look, let me see if I have a scrap. I think I have a scrap. Hang on. You know what? Let me give you a swatch. Sorry to go off on a tangent, but now I'm curious. Let me just put a drop on the Da Vinci for a second. Let that soak in, because I've been using the Turners, and they have water on them. So let's see. This is the Turner rose red. This is the Da Vinci rose red. So it does look like the Da Vinci might be a little bit cleaner. Let me see, this is a Turner again. Gosh, they're pretty darn similar. I feel like the Da Vinci might be more finely ground, but that's the same color. I think these two colors, a vermilion, let's do vermilion Da Vinci. This is Da Vinci vermilion versus permanent scarlet in Turner. So they don't have the exact same colors. Yeah, they're not the same color because the Turner looks a little bit more finely ground and brighter there. But they're very similar. You can't go wrong with either. I have felt that the Da Vinci's might be a little more pigmented, but that might just be because I only have bright colors in Da Vinci. I don't have a lot of different Da Vinci colors. And now I'm just going to adjust and pretty much call it a day. Any questions before we finish up here?
Yes. Benny Chavez, do you think iridescent medium would work on this piece in the highlights?
Oh, I think that would be pretty. It would look like, you know how Sour Patch Kids have that crispy...
the sugar.
The
sugar on top
of the
sugar.
That's what it would look like. That would be pretty. For when your sugar is not sugary enough.
When you need more sugar on your sugar.
Yep. You just want to make sure if you're attempting this project at home that you do choose a set that's a little more on the transparent side. Originally, I was going to be doing a vase of peonies, which I'll probably do next week, and I was going to use Lucas paints. And but the Lucas paints do have a more of a matte feeling to them, kind of like the Polish watercolors that I used a couple weeks ago. I just knew they wouldn't be the best paint to capture this, so I chose a Turner because they are more luminescent and they glaze a little bit better. So, just make sure you have a nice, bright, transparent watercolor, and you're going to be all set. After this is all dry, I will post a photo on my blog and on Instagram, and there's another look at our little gummy bears. They're so pretty. And I think that's pretty much it, unless I have any questions.
We're all caught up.
Wonderful. Well, thanks everyone for watching and for sticking through our technical difficulties. And thanks to all the moderators that helped out with everyone's questions. And thanks to you, Sarah.
Yes.
And if you want any of the supplies that I used today, pretty much everything's linked up at Jerry's Artorama. They do have the Caran d'Ache crayons, but I didn't list it because I wasn't planning on using it, but I will find a link for that over at Jerry's for you or you can search it, obviously. And if you are looking for a watercolor class, all my classes are $42 in celebration of my 42nd birthday, or you can get 46% off of the payment plans if you've been waiting for a payment plan on like the new flower class or any of the other classes. Those are also included. So you can get a deal, whichever is better for your budget. And I think that's it. Do you have anything to add?
All caught up.
Okay, wonderful. Thank you guys so much for watching. And until next time, happy crafting.